Hello, and welcome back to Emagia's AI for Finance podcast. This is Brian Chappell, your Director of Content Strategy here with Emagia. And today I have a really special episode for you. I'm personally very excited about this one. Today we have as a guest Wanda Borges. I have known Wanda Borges since I started at NACM as a wet behind the ears, not knowing anything about credit reporter and staff writer back in 2009. And Wanda was one of the first people to kind of help me along and show me where I was doing things wrong and where I was doing things right. And along the way, it showed herself to be one of the most knowledgeable people I have ever met in the trade credit industry. So anytime I get to see her speak is good and highly informative. She is one of the most popular speakers on the circuit today with NACM, national events and NACM affiliate events throughout the country. Also does a lot of instruction work, teaching finance leaders and credit professionals how to do their jobs better from a legal stance, and keep themselves out of trouble. Importantly, you have, I believe, co-chaired the Commercial Law League. You have written at least a half dozen books. Your resume is very significant in that area. You also helped write some changes to bankruptcy law back in 2005. That was something really important that we worked on, trying to help with things like venue and some common sense practices to help small businesses around the country. So I could spend the next half hour talking about your resume, or maybe hours. But how about you go ahead and talk about yourself and some things that you're interested in right now, especially since we're here to talk about the technological advancements that are driving things today.
Thank you, Brian. And yes, it's a pleasure for me to be here with you. And 2009, was it really that long ago? My goodness gracious. Yeah, actually, one of the things I am very proud of is that I am only the second female president of the Commercial Law League. In the Commercial Law League is 150 years old, and in all that time, we have only had 3 female presidents of the league. So the league is
That's
trying
outstanding.
the league is trying to come into the modern day world. Hopefully, we'll have a 4th female president in the not too distant future. And I also now still work very closely with the Commercial Law League of America. I sit on the Eastern Region Board, and as a past chair of the Creditors' Rights section and Bankruptcy section, I'm always active with them. I also sit on the board of the International Association of Commercial Collectors, which is an organization that has a great synergism with the Commercial Law League. And as Brian said, I do a lot with the NACM regional and affiliate organizations, and as well with the national. I will be at Credit Congress this year. I haven't missed a Credit Congress since 1990. So
Wow.
It's fun to always go back and be there. And I'm looking forward to it again this year. Enough about me, other than the fact that for those of you interested, I am practicing law for over 40 years. And I opened my own firm. We spun off from another firm in 2000. So May 1 of this year, we will be our own firm since for 24 years. When we first started, we hoped and prayed we would last 10, and here we are 24 years later. So enough about me. We're here to talk about artificial intelligence, and it really is here. It really is here. Brian said that I speak about a lot of areas, pretty much anything that has to do with credit and law. I have been speaking about for many, many years, more than 30 years now. But today we speak a lot about automated intelligence. So, Brian, I think you have some thoughts and some questions to get us going. I will turn back to you.
Well, yeah. So last year, I think, marked a huge year as far as AI, generative AI, autonomous finance, all those topics go. It seemed like a lot of people at the CFO level, at the senior creditor and credit manager level, at the treasury level. It seemed like a lot of people that used to keep these kind of technologies at arm's length and wanted to stay away from them, all of a sudden were at least embracing the idea and at least trying to gather information and maybe implement little changes to use these things to make their jobs a little easier and their businesses a little more efficient. The ChatGPT success, I thought, really put it on the map a bit for me. So circles I was in, I saw lots of people kind of being drawn to it like moths to a flame at that point. What did you see in 2023 that marked such a difference from the past before that?
That's a great question. Prior to 2023, I probably didn't even think about AI. Yes, we all saw the movies, and yes, some of us remember, seeing 2001 Space Odyssey and remember how, but it was something that somebody else played with. It wasn't anything that we delved in. I am co-chair of the editorial board of the Commercial Law World, which is the magazine that CLLA publishes. And I was on a conference call one day with the editorial board, and one of my colleagues said, "Hey, have any of you guys tried ChatGPT?" And I said, "ChatGPT, what is that?" So he said, "Oh, you've got to try it. This is this great tool." So of course I went on and I started trying ChatGPT and found out it is a great tool. It can do all sorts of things. It can tell you all sorts of things. There is a limit to ChatGPT. Apparently, the information that was plugged into ChatGPT stopped at about 2022. So they don't necessarily have things that are going on today. And if you ask it a today question, it will tell you honestly, I don't have that information because I'm not up to that time period. My information stops a few years ago. But it has become a great tool. And since then, I'll tell you what I realized about lecturing. People were tired of hearing about bankruptcy. Since COVID, we had a period of time when a lot of bankruptcies weren't being filed because people got the PPP loans, companies got the PPP loans. So suddenly, as a lecturer, I'm saying, well, people are tired of hearing about bankruptcy. What is new? What do the credit professionals need to know about? So I was forced to learn about AI, things that I didn't know 2 years ago or even last year. And that's how was my first introduction to AI. And then little by little, I started asking my friends and colleagues in the credit profession, what are you doing about AI? It's very interesting, Brian. Everybody knows about it. Some people are extremely reluctant to use it. They're frightened about it. They were like, oh my God, I don't want to know about it. I'm not technologically advanced. I can't use it. So it's still in the infancy stage, I think, as far as a lot of credit people. Now, of course, you at Emagia, are you finding this reluctance that people are, oh, I'm not ready for it. I don't know about it.
Thank you. I would say we're finding less reluctance, in part because we're a technology company. So I think, in a way, a lot of the people that come to talk to us already kind of have an interest, and in part because I think there's an embarrassment level of people don't want to say they're afraid of it to somebody who is working in AI, which is unnecessary because everybody learns at some point. But yeah, we're finding a lot of people that are more willing to use it because someone showed them how to do it and it made something to do for them easier. And for them, it was kind of like, this just saved me 4 hours. If you can keep saving people hours of their time, then that's, at the end of the day, that's what any vendor like us is trying to do. We're trying to help maximize people's efficiency. So these kind of GPT things and automation can really go a long way. And I'm really impressed that you were so open to it because I mean I've read your writing, I've read your raw, unedited copy before for many years, and you're an excellent writer. So I found that my ex my friends that used to be journalists almost have the most problem with it because they're like, I'm already a great writer. And it's kind of hard for them to make that transition for a machine to like tell them like you should say it like this, and there's a humbling there. But if you can, it does save some time.
Well, that's an interesting comment, Brian, because I have not yet used ChatGPT to write anything. Well, let me rephrase that. Let me give you an example. In November, I was receiving an award, and I said, I have to write an acceptance speech. And I told ChatGPT, I told it about the CLLA, about the award, a little bit about me, what the award was all about, when I was receiving it, who the makeup of the CLLA was. And I said, write me an acceptance speech. And it wrote me an acceptance speech. And I brought it downstairs to my husband, and I said, hey, David, look at my acceptance speech for next week. And he read it. He was like, hey, that's great. I said, I didn't write that. I said, ChatGPT wrote that. I said, I'm not going to read that. I said, I will write my own. But it was kind of, for me, it was, let me see what it can do. And you know what? I probably could have used that and it would have been fine. But let's jump to something else. You and I have talked about some of the dangers and pitfalls, and there are dangers and pitfalls with AI. And maybe I'm fast forwarding too much, but we can always come back to some of the basics. There's a law firm that got into deep trouble with using artificial intelligence. They were in court, and in court, for those of your listeners that don't know the terms, when an attorney has to do a paper and present their law to the court, it's either called a memorandum of law or it's called a brief. And an associate, which is the younger person at a law firm, was given this job to write a memorandum of law and had AI write it and presented it to the court. Well, the adversary, the other side, said, those cases don't exist. Well, what happened were a lot of mistakes. Number one, the lazy associate using AI instead of researching the law. Number two, the senior partner not bothering to check anything that the associate did and putting his name on the document. Number three, presenting it to the court without anybody having proved it. And then when the other side said those cases don't exist, they lied. And they said, oh, absolutely, we did the research, those cases exist. And it was found that AI actually made up legal cases. The cases didn't exist.
Wow.
Obviously, the lawsuit was thrown out, or that side lost, and the attorneys were suspended from practice for something like 6 months until they went and took some remedial courses.
Wow.
Yeah, so there is a danger involved in allowing AI. So occasionally I will ask AI questions, or I will ask it to, if I have to do a brand new presentation, I'll even say, hey, prepare a program for me. But and perhaps that's just me, I never take it as gospel. I go and double check what AI has told me, or I may like the ideas, but I'll put my own meat into the material, so to speak.
And
So
that's something when we're out there like doing exhibits and doing chats and doing conference lectures and whatnot. That's a big thing that we kind of talk about, because one of the big fears that held on for a long time was AI is a job killer. It's going to take everyone's job. And I love this story that you're telling us, because it just shows if you just hand everything over to AI and let it run with it, you're going to get a good chunk of what you need, but there's going to be nuances that a human needs to get in there. That's why when we talk about AI and we talk about our own GPT, which was our answer to ChatGPT that we made, basically to be just for finance functions and just be, for like going through spreadsheets and extracting really important data very quickly and things like that. But our thing was, this is a tool. Like, you can't get rid of your whole staff. You can't get rid of, this many people. Like, at the end of the day, it's supposed to be a co-pilot or an assistant or just a tool in the toolbox. and when used properly, it can save hours and hours every week for people. But at the same time, you can get yourself in a lot of hot water if you just take it and don't even look at it again. And I think that's an interesting thing for law. I think that's an interesting thing for finance. I think that's an interesting thing for academia, that it is it's got an immense amount of ability, and it's got an immense amount of machine learning technology built behind it, but it's best when done in conjunction with a human kind of looking over it and sort of smoothing out the rough patches, as it were.
Yeah,
That's how
and
I look at it.
one of the things about AI, and you just said it, it's a machine. It still is not a person. And one of the things that the credit people have to deal with all the time is let's not even get into the spreadsheet portion of it yet, but the credit executive who has to make a decision on granting credit or not granting credit. Great. AI can help them with the finances. AI can help them with telling them, hey, this customer has paid late over the last 2 years. In July and August, every year, this customer pays late. So if you're going to sell to them, be careful what happens in July and August. But what AI can't do, and this is a flaw, not a flaw, that's probably the wrong word, but this is a something in AI that people have to be aware, and that's what we have to deal with today: diversity, equality, and inclusion. The lawyers have to deal with it all the time. Corporations have to deal with it all the time. AI could accidentally be prejudicial or discriminatory. And if you don't have a human being watching it, you could find out that somebody is denied credit based on a reason that is not your ECOA reason or is not your legal reason. So you do need a pair of eyes watching to make sure you are not excluding a group of people because they are a specific ethnicity, or you are not biased in any way, and AI doesn't know about those biases.
Yeah, I've seen more stories about that recently, so that's a great point. No one's brought that up, on our podcast. So thank you for hitting that area. Um, I guess just shifting to, in talking to your clients and the people that are getting a little more educated or a lot more educated on this. Um, we've gotten past the point like where people have like discovered it's out there, and whether people are pushing it away or embracing it is up to them. But a year on, the awareness level is higher than it's ever been. Has that changed the kind of questions you get from your clients and colleagues, and changed the kind of conversations when people approach you with concerns or questions about opportunities where AI and autonomous finance come in finance and credit?
Yes, a little bit. A year ago, people were asking, what is it? And what can it do for credit? And as I first prepared a program on AI, and as I said, I was learning myself as I was passing it on to the credit field, it was more along the lines of, what can it do for me? How can I use this? What is it? I don't even know what functions it has. Lately, I find the questions are more along the lines of, how do I stay out of trouble? What are the pitfalls? What are the advantages? What do I have to be careful about when using AI? And so more and more, I've had to get into the legal issues of what to watch for, what the pitfalls are, and what the advantages are.
So how has that process been for you? Just, kind of getting up to date with this pretty massive sea change. And I mean, one of the biggest technological changes that we've all seen since maybe since the internet got really popular, right?
Yeah, and it's interesting that you say that, because we were just having a conversation this weekend. Most of us have some kind of cell phone, and periodically you're going to get this notification that you're going to get an update on your cell phone. And we were talking about the fact that when you're using your cell phone, autocorrect. Well, autocorrect is a form of AI, and people like me tend to hate it. because sometimes I'm using maybe a word that's not a common word. And if I'm texting fast, autocorrect is going to change the word. And if I'm not paying attention, I end up sending out a text and saying, no, I didn't mean to say that. But what we were talking about this weekend, and the consensus seemed to be that it started with the latest updates, the iOS updates on the cell phones. Not only is it now autocorrecting your word, it's finishing your sentences. Well, that's almost generative AI. Now, I notice that happens on my emails, and it even happens when I'm creating a document on my laptop or on my computer. It's finishing my sentence for me. Now, sometimes it may not be what I want to say, but many times it'll put in 2 or 3 words to finish the sentence, and it's exactly what I was going to say. So it has learned how I think, which is kind of a scary thought, and it has learned how I write, and it is actually finishing sentences for me. So I do see a definite change there. What I see with the credit executives is they know it now, but a lot of the companies have not yet gone full bore. What I am getting now on my different than I got 6 months ago is, Wanda, who can we use? Who can help us with this credit process? And as you know, Brian, because you've given me a permission to use Emagia in my slides, I've included some Emagia information in the slides and given credit to, hey, this is, I've taken this directly from Emagia's information. I can't, of course, recommend one company over another, but I've been able to give them 2 or 3 companies and say, these are the companies you can look to. And if you want to talk offline, I can certainly tell you who I know and what I might prefer. But, NACM would not want us giving one company only. But more and more of them are asking, where can we go? How do we do this? But I'm still running into the credit person saying, well, I don't make those decisions. Decisions come from above. So how do I convince my company this is what we need to be doing and this is where we need to be going? So they want more and more of the, Wanda, give me the practical. Tell me what it's going to do for my company, not so much for me, but how is it going to save my company time and effort without my losing my job? And how is it going to make my process even better so that I can add more value to my company because I'm relying a little bit on AI?
So in essence, people want to cut through the fluff and they just want to know, what are the use cases? How do I use this? Just bang, bang, bang. Give me the information where in 5 minutes I can tell somebody else that's a little higher on the food chain or whatever. This is why I need this.
Right. And where it's coming in useful to a lot of the credit executives, both on the credit side and on the collection side, is that you can actually, for example, one of the things that I talk about is that AI can prioritize for you. So it can prioritize what it can tell you, hey, this is a customer that come July, you're going to have to hold hands with, or you're not going to get paid, they're going to pay somebody else. So it can do a little bit of predictive analysis for you. And it can also, on the collection side, tell you, you can beat this customer 10 times over the head and you're not going to get paid. So concentrate your personal efforts on customers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because a little bit of hand-holding, a little bit of personalization with them is going to get you the payment for your company.
Okay. Have you had some clients and colleagues that have kind of embraced this a little more than others that are already having success stories and able to kind of brag about, oh, generative AI has helped me do this, autonomous finance has helped me do this. Have you seen a lot of that yet, or are we still in the phase where implementation is the name of the game?
Yeah, I'm sorry to say I can't give you any stories. Not in the credit field. I am seeing it in the collection agency field. They have embraced AI. They are using a lot more of it. And of course, there's a whole legal issue now with robocalls and AI, what can and cannot be used. So, but I am seeing it there. The law firms, a lot of the law firms are probably way behind the credit people. We lawyers tend to be skeptical. That's part of our nature. So not everyone is like my colleague in Florida who said, hey, Wanda, try AI. Or myself in the New York area, some of them are like, I'm not going to use it. I don't want to know about it. Not for me. So it's not there yet. It's coming there. It's coming. Maybe in 25, 26, we're going to say, wow, remember when, but we're not there yet.
Yeah, and I mean, you have to deal with the courts in Southern New York District and Wilmington, which are tough.
Yeah.
Anybody who knows anything about the bankruptcy courts about America knows that the two of them are not the you got to be more prepared there than maybe anywhere.
Absolutely. And following that case that I told you about, several of the courts have actually issued orders. They're not telling you you cannot use AI, but they're saying if you have used AI in any part of your document preparation, you must sign a statement saying we have used AI. So the courts
Wow,
want to know. Yeah, yeah,
huh, that's wild.
absolutely.
Well, that's one way for them to at least look out for it, I guess. So, as far as you go, when looking at this from application to business type endeavors, what are you most, I guess, optimistic that you think you're going to be seeing here in the next year or two with AI? And what are you not seeing that you really would love to put on the wish list and would love to see it get into, as far as business functions or processes in the future beyond that?
Yeah. Um, I think I'm going to see it more and more in credit decisions because a lot of the credit executives, their staff has been cut and they still have to make credit decisions. So hopefully they're going to start being able to use AI so that they can actually use an algorithm and that might be able to and give them an idea of yes, grant credit or no, don't grant credit. Um, I had a credit application come across my desk last week, and the client wanted to know if I thought they could pursue this debtor. The credit application was totally blank, other than the signatures. And they were like, well, I guess the credit director at the time didn't have time to even bother looking at it. I said, well, somebody granted them credit and now they haven't paid you. So hopefully that's going to happen less and less, and we're going to get AI to start being able to assess credit and grant that. That's the number one place I see it. Um, Spreadsheets. Nobody likes doing spreadsheets, least of all me. I'd love to know that. You know what I'd love to see personally? I'd love to see AI being able to run a preference analysis. Now, I have an associate that has taken over doing our preference analyses. Not that I can't, and not that I'm not good at it, but it's tedious. So maybe AI can step in and start doing those tedious chores of here's the information, prepare a preference analysis for me. And I think a lot of credit executives would love to see that because most of them don't know how to create a preference spreadsheet. That's where we come in. So maybe I'm cutting off, something for my own company to do, but it's really useful if a credit executive can give me somewhat of a spreadsheet that gives me some ideas of what's been going on, and then we can go from there. So I'd like to see that happen. I think we might see AI start to develop more predictive analyses to help companies understand that, hey, maybe a year from now, this company may run into trouble, which is something most credit executives don't take the time to try to do. So those are the three areas in particular that I hope to see coming up in the future.
Okay, and just as a bottom line thing, because I know not everybody is sold, and of course, no one's going to think it's perfect, or at least most people aren't going to think it's perfect for the future. But are you yourself? Do you consider yourself more positive than negative on AI going forward?
Oh, absolutely. I think people that don't embrace AI are going to be left behind. Um, and I think that goes to lawyers and credit executives. This is something that's here today. And whether you use it a lot or you use it a little bit, I think everybody has to embrace artificial intelligence. It is here. and it is the wave of the future. And if it would be like an attorney insisting on going to the law library and pulling the books by hand. Doesn't happen. Can't happen anymore. 10 years ago, well, maybe 15 years ago, did we do all of our research online? No. 24 years ago, when I broke up the old firm and built the new firm, one of the things that I negotiated with my former partner was which of the law library books was my firm going to buy from them and were they going to keep? And I kept some. And then little by little, my staff and I were like, why are we updating these hardbound books? Yes, we have some hardbound books, but basically research is online today. So everybody has to embrace it, whether they want to or not. Everybody has to embrace it.
Okay, great. Well, I guess any other parting shots, any other things you want people to take away from this appearance, and maybe any last warnings, since I know there's lots of pitfalls, and of course, good attorneys want to keep people out of trouble. So,
well, yes. So good and bad. Risk management. I think AI can play a big part in risk management, can play a big part in making credit decisions. Dangers, the discrimination, because AI doesn't understand bias. So you still need a human face to look at that. More dangers, and the one we didn't talk about is personal integrity, safeguarding and protecting personal information, whether it's personal information of a guarantor or a small business or a sole proprietor. The credit executive has to be aware that there still have to be safeguards put into place to make sure no personal information is sent out to the world.
okay, well, I think that was a great chat. Maybe we'll do a part 2 in the future if you'll make some time for me later in the year. But thank you so much. I know you are incredibly busy and always in demand. So thank you for spending some time with our listeners today. I think people are going to get a lot out of what we did here.
I hope so, Brian. This was a great deal of fun for me. As I may have told you, this is actually my first podcast. I do lectures all the time. This was a lot of fun. And I have a question for you. You said you have GPT. That's not accessible to everybody. That's a subscriber. You have to be an
actually, we had lots of arguments about this internally, but we decided to make GPT free for anybody to use for the first, several months or even year that it's up. So of what we've developed with it so far, anybody can go to emagia.com and go to the products menu, just pull that down and start using it. And basically the quick way of using it is you take a few spreadsheets, you upload them in. It's a closed cloud thing, so there's no danger of like losing that information, anything beyond doing online banking on your computer. And then you start asking the questions like, who's my biggest debtor, or what 3 debtors asked for the most money, or things or make me a pie chart for a report that lists my 10 biggest X or Y. So so far people seem to really enjoy it and get a kick out of using it. And again, it saves people time, and that's the name of the game for us and our competitors. To be fair, it's we're just trying to make people's lives easier and make them the most efficient CFOs and credit managers and VPs of treasury that they can possibly be. And we're in a world where people work closer to 60 hours than 40 hours a week. And if we can help people chisel that down and be using that time for like the important needle moving stuff, as opposed to the mundane, I got to go through a spreadsheet for one piece of information thing, then I think we're mission accomplished. So
thank you for sharing that. I'm going to go check it out. So
all right.
It's good.
I'm glad. Let me know what you think, and feel free to give a critique. It's a living, breathing solution. So we're working on it all the time to make it as good as it can be. So
tremendous. Well, it's been a pleasure this morning, and you have a lovely day.
Thank you so much, Wanda, and thank you all for joining us today on the Emagia AI for Finance podcast. We will see you in about 2 weeks. Thank you for joining us. Take care.